Um, okay, looks like we are live with the recording, so we'll go ahead and get started. I've got about a minute after noon. So again, thanks for joining us for today's CCC MyPath webinar. Happy New Year to everyone, and thank you for joining us for the first MyPath webinar of 2019. So I want to start off by introducing your speakers today. We will hear first from Mike Caruso. He's the MyPath product manager and a personnel at the California Community College's Technology Center. We're then going to hear from Ralph Plaza, a senior account executive at MZ, and he's going to tell us about the career coach feature within MyPath. And then once again, my name is Sandoval, and I'm the communications director at California Community College's Technology Center. Just briefly, our agenda for today is Mike Caruso is going to present a MyPath overview. We're going to follow that up with a presentation by Ralph Plaza on the career coach element of MyPath. After that, we'll have the opportunity for questions and answers. For those of you attending today, I'd like to ask you to make use of the chat feature within Confer Zoom. You can post any questions you might have to that chat box, and when we reach the Q&A section after Ralph's presentation, we'll review those questions and try to get you some answers. We'll wrap up with contact and follow-up information. Our objectives for today, presentations are really focused on how the California Community College's MyPath can help solve the problems of learner onboarding in alignment with the guided pathways, pillar number 1. MyPath can help to solve problems of high attrition between application and enrollment. Ralph's going to give us a presentation on Career Coach and the value it adds to CCC MyPath. And mixed into the presentations, we will likely hear some stories about how colleges are currently implementing CCC MyPath. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Mike Caruso. You there, sir?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear, thank you.
Perfect, okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Just really briefly, I want to kind of give you guys the format for what we're gonna talk about here. So for the MyPath portion of the presentation, we're just gonna give you a general overview about sort of what the genesis was for the development of the project, kind of what problems we're aiming to solve for, a little bit about how students will interact with it, and then we'll hand it over to the career coach folks. And I want to stress that if there are questions about the way that the product works, you can feel free to put them in the chat box. Otherwise, I would highly encourage you to reach out to your college relationship manager with the tech center, and we can actually get scheduled with you guys for an individualized demonstration where we can go much deeper into the product and about how you guys can use it at your college specifically, including implementation and things like that. So we'll offer that up, and hopefully you guys can take advantage of that, because those meetings tend to be pretty informative. Okay, so just to get us kicked off here, CCC MyPath is a product that was developed in response to a specific set of problems that we were seeing with some of the data in the system. And specifically, the way that MyPath works now is built in response to some of the application issues. And specifically, this is a statistic that some of you may have heard, some of you may not have, but it's one that I was definitely extremely surprised to learn, which is that we did an examination of total volume of electronic applications that are coming into the system through CCC Apply. Excuse me. And specifically, we went through that data, and we did our best to deduplicate it, which means that we pulled out duplicate applications, we pulled out applications made in bad faith, applications that came as a result of bots, things like that, and tried to drill down to the really true and complete number of real applications from real users as best we could tell coming into the system. And then we compared that total number of applications to the number of enrollments that then occurred across the system. And what we learned is that over 70% of the total number of applications that entered the California Community College system through CCC Apply did not result in a student enrolling in classes. That is more than 1.5 million students who submit an application, spend all that time going through Apply, submit an application to your college, then fall out of the funnel and do not enroll in classes. And that is a massive number of students that we're missing out on an opportunity to assist, right? We've actually done that same report 2 years running now, and it would seem as though the problem is actually slightly worsening. I think we saw a 1% increase year over year in the number of students who were submitting applications and then not enrolling, 2 years ago as compared to a year ago. So that's a big problem, right? I mean, that's a lot of people that were missing out on an opportunity to help. It's a lot of students that the colleges are missing out on. And so we started to examine what the user experience looks like for students who are entering the sort of application and enrollment funnel to figure out if there were any obvious flaws in the process where we could help them, right? And the user experience that we found goes something like this, and I think this is probably generally applicable to most colleges, which is that a student will go to your college's website. They will, have decided that they want to apply, so they'll find the Apply Now button. They'll follow it. It will take them into the account creation and application process, where they will spend on average between 15 and 30 minutes completing an application. I think the average was something like 18 or 19 minutes. Don't quote me on that, but it was something like that. So they spend this amount of time going through this long web form, filling out the application, giving college notice in the terms that are the strongest ones available to them that they're interested in attending your institution. And then at the end of that process, where they've come to your website, gone through the application, they push submit, that sends the application data to your college, and we give them a page afterwards that says, "Thank you for applying. We'll get back to you soon." And that is where the process ends, right? At that point, all the student can do is sign off, disappear off into the ether of the internet, look at Facebook, go back to work, do whatever it is they were doing before. And wait for us to send them the next set of steps that they will follow to begin whatever it is that your college has determined are the next steps for incoming students. For some colleges that are technologically apt, that have systems that are very fast and that have really done a good job streamlining this process, that email can come to students in a matter of minutes. Could be 30 minutes, could be an hour, but it could be pretty fast. For a lot of colleges who don't have those resources and processes in place, it can be multiple days until the student receives an email that says, "Here's what you need to do next," right? So 2 or 3 days. And worse, they're getting these notifications in their email inbox where they get, tons of other spam messages. And then we're hoping against hope that the student will go into the inbox, find whatever that next set of instructions are, and then follow them, right? And then, once they come back from whatever's in that email, they will hopefully transition into enrollment. But that, I think, hopefully illustrates to you that there is a very large hole in the funnel, right? There's a place that's very obvious where students can fall out of the process, where we're not doing a good job guiding the students, staying in touch with them, staying in contact with them, helping to make sure that they transition from this application they just submitted to an enrollment at a college. So having identified that as a problem, as a flaw in the process, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how MyPath can help that now. So as we discussed, right now, the application process sort of comes first, then they push submit, nothing really happens. They get an email a couple days later, they hopefully follow those instructions. And I'm seeing a bunch of chat questions come in right now. I can't really check those quite yet, but as soon as I get to kind of the end of my little portion of the presentation, I'll begin responding in the chat box for you guys. What MyPath can do, just to kind of cut to the chase here, is actually slot into that gap in the process at the end, right? So if your college implements MyPath, what you can do is actually have the final page in the application, instead of just saying, thanks for applying, we'll get back to you soon, we give them a message on that final page that says, your college actually has an onboarding process ready for you. Please begin right now. So that transforms the process from submit an application, thank you, wait a couple days, to submit an application, begin following a set of instructions that the college has identified for you immediately. They can click a button. It will transition them into CCC MyPath directly from CCC Apply. So we have an integration with them that allows their UI to basically have navigation that points to the MyPath onboarding process. And students can jump into this process that you see here on the screen immediately upon submitting their application. When a student lands on MyPath, they will get an experience that looks similar to this one. So of course, this is just a demonstration, a test account. This is able to be customized by each college. So it'll look slightly different for you when you guys have customized your accounts. But obviously, your college's branding is first and foremost. We'll have your logo, your name, and then a rotating series of images, should you choose to configure this, that will have pictures of your students, your buildings, things that are sort of symbolic or significant to your campus, to make it really look and feel like they're already interacting with an experience that is tied to your college. But the kind of like meat and potatoes of the student experience is down here in what we call the advisor cards. So we did a lot of research with California community college students to try to figure out what kind of user experience they would be looking for in this type of setting. And what we found was a pretty universal thread of feedback amongst many different types of students. So students who are familiar with technology, those who are not, those who are young, those who are old. We met with a lot of different types of students, and we found that a really common piece of feedback was that they dislike being dropped into an experience that where they are expected to kind of suss out where they need to go, what they need to do, in what order things need to happen. And they really prefer an experience that kind of holds their hand a lot, very closely, right? And so we have strived to build a user experience that is extremely prescriptive in nature, right? And so these advisor cards, which really are the kind of main thrust of the experience within MyPath, are essentially set up like task lists, like checklists, right? And this is where you'll be able to show them, here are the things that we expect of our new students, right? The first thing we want them to do is to watch an orientation video. Then we want you guys to explore careers. We want you to read about, take a career assessment, figure out what type of careers are applicable to you. We want you to learn about financial aid information. We want you to learn about our programs here on campus. We want you to learn about our additional services that are available to you. And you can set up an onboarding process that you think is the correct one for your new and incoming students. But what we also know, and what we also found in a lot of these interviews, is that there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all onboarding process, right? There is no possible way that you could create a series of steps that are equally applicable to all of your students. And so we give you guys the tool set to create a much more powerful user experience than that. We have, through our integration with CCC Apply and through a piece of technology in MyPath that we call the rules engine, you can essentially cause MyPath to dynamically respond to the student's application inputs. So what I mean by that is, if we learn in the application process that they just went through that they are a veteran, or that they need childcare services, or that they need information about financial aid, so on and so forth. If we learn those things about a given student in their application data, you can actually set MyPath up to have onboarding steps that are uniquely tailored to that student. So you could say, for my students that are veterans, I actually don't want the first step to be watch this orientation video. I actually want the first step to be read about veteran services on campus. For my students that need childcare services, I actually don't want the second step to be explore careers. I'd like the second step or the fourth step or whatever to be, childcare services on my campus. Here's where you go to find out more. Here's a phone number. Here's information about it. You can put content in MyPath itself, so you can create, content pages very quickly and easily in MyPath. It does not require your IT staff to do so. You can embed videos. You can embed images. Or you can use these task cards as pointers to pages on your local website or within your local portal, so that you can actually create an experience that gets the student information in the place that you think is appropriate, and helps them do things not only in the correct order, but also that they see the information that is uniquely applicable to them, dynamically applicable to them, based on the things that we just learned about them in the application, right? They spent 20 minutes going through that CCC apply process. We should absolutely make use of the things they're telling us there. We also talked a little bit before about how there's a problem with students that are kind of falling out of the funnel, so to speak, right? We know that they come to this process, they fill in a bunch of information, then maybe they go away, and that email that they get a couple of days later isn't always enough to bring them back and help kind of usher them into enrollment. MyPath also comes with a communications engine that is able to send emails, send text messages, and send messages to the MyPath inbox, which is here, right? So what we know is that we want, and this is a sample user, of course, that doesn't have any messages in their inbox. So this is probably not, indicative of what a student would see if you're using this technology. But what you can do here is you can actually create an experience that will nudge and remind the student on a regular basis to come back and continue to engage with this process while they are progressing to an enrollment, right? We want to make sure that this process is sticky. The main goal of MyPath being used in this way is to help transition them to that enrollment, right? We want to make sure that you're maximizing that student intake, that you're giving them the tools and resources that the students need in order to be successful. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that they're continuously engaging with this process, that they don't just hit this one time and then disappear and never come back. So you can set up automated reminders that will reach out to students through any of those three channels. During the application process, the student will actually tell us how they want to be communicated with. And so we follow those preferences that they've set. And we'll tell them, hey, we saw that you hit MyPath earlier today, and it's been 24 hours, but you still have some open onboarding steps that you haven't completed. Please come back and do those, right? And when they come here, they'll see information that's very specific, very specifically what they told us they wanted to see when we were doing this research, right? So they'll learn during this onboarding process what it is that they're being asked to do and why, right? Further, when it comes to individualized steps, they'll learn how long each step is going to take. And that's important because students told us that they expect to be doing this kind of thing while they're, for example, on break at work. And if they've got a 10-minute break and this task is going to be 20 minutes, well, maybe they won't do this one. Maybe they'll find another one that they can do in the amount of time they have available to them and engage with that. But really, the goal here is that you can create an onboarding process that is what you think is important for your students. You'll be able to create an experience that will help keep students engaged, help students transition, hopefully, from that application to that enrollment. And most importantly to the students, you'll be able to get them the information that is specifically what they need in order to be successful, because we know what they need. They just told us in the application. So that's how from a high level, the MyPath onboarding toolset works. I'll go ahead and start checking some of the chat questions now, but in the meantime, I'd like to hand it over to Ralph to tell us about the career exploration tool, Career Coach, that we also make available to you as a part of this process.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me. Let me share my screen with y'all.
We can hear you, Ralph.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Super. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. Welcome to Career Coach. Let me get that going here. Okay, so this is the homepage for Career Coach. So, my name is Ralph Plaza. I work for MZ, and what we've done is we have adapted our Career Coach platform to integrate with the MyPath portal, and we're just really privileged and we're really thankful to have been working with the Tech Center. I mean, they've been just great, and I think this has been a great partnership, and I hope you all can see kind of the value that we could bring. The idea is for a student to be able to understand what career opportunities there are, okay? So what Career Coach does, it guides people along the way, and I'll show you here in a minute kind of the different functionality, but the idea is for a student to be able to look at pretty much each of these pages and be able to understand what they're looking at, okay? And it's going to give them information. And in some cases, pretty heavy-duty labor market information, which is very accessible, very attainable, and where a student could really kind of sort of understand what they're looking at. I hope you agree with me. So let's look at the home page here. This is the home page for Career Coach. The home page has several functionalities here. It's got assessment functionality, careers, programs, okay? It's got a veteran functionality, which I'll show you, as well as if a student wants information, a student can click on here and ask for information. Also faculty and staff, if they have a question about the mapping of the top to sock and that sort of thing. Those kinds of questions that can be fielded from the tech center. So think of it this way, let's take a look at the veterans functionality here. So if a veteran wants to get some sort of information about what applies as it relates to a standard occupation code that sort of matches what they did when they were in the service, they could put in their military occupation code, say 13 Bravo, for example. And whatever their mock code is, what it does is it brings similar occupations in the civilian world that correspond with their mock code. So these are occupations, and gets them right looking at exactly things that correlate with their occupation. That's one way for them to kind of go, get into the tool, for example. Okay. Another way for a student is they can go straight into the career box. They can browse careers, which these are the 16 federal career clusters, and look at these. And in a minute, you'll see kind of what's involved with these. So these are all the sort of the career paths that are involved with business management and administration, for example. They could do that. Or what they could do is they could actually type a career, and it's the box is pretty flexible. So let's say they wanted to be a vet, just kind of put it in, and what it would bring up is information on whatever it is they typed in there, veterinarian assistant, et cetera, right? So that's one way a student could come in. Same thing with programs as well. These are kind of meta majors, the program clusters, for example, that you find within Career Coach. I'll just take a look at this one here, and then we'll see these are all of the programs that are available as it relates to this meta major. A student could come in that way, for example, okay? Or they could type in computer, and then get results from that. As you see, we've got 535 results there, right? And the more, just like any search, if they oops, spelled it wrong. It gets a little bit more specific. So here now we have 58 results, and these are the colleges that they can actually get training. So that gets them sort of really going right away. One of the ways that I want to show you is how a student would do it through taking the assessment, okay? We have a couple of assessments in the tool. They're based after the Holland code, and one of them is a 6-question assessment, and then one of them is 60 questions. So a student could take one or the other. One of the things I'll mention here is the site is mobile friendly, so they could take it on their phone, they could take it on pretty much any mobile device, and so that's why we have the 6-question one. The 6-question one we totally realized has its limitations, but we found it to be very, very helpful in terms of getting students close to what they're looking for, and then also, more than anything, get them looking into what careers and program opportunities there are. That's the key, I think, for Career Coach, is to get students into it so they could really start to see, whoa, my horizon is much broader than I knew. Hopefully, that's the idea. So I'm going to take this 6-question assessment. It starts out basically with saying, don't worry about tuition, and let's just get started here, right? And so these are the questions. It's very, very straightforward. What would you like to do? Work with your hands on with objects or machine tools, plants or animals, that sort of thing. So it's very clear. work or play outside, to just kind of get an idea. So a student would say, yeah, I think that's great. What would you like to do? Observe, learn, analyze, etc. So a student would just kind of go through these 6 questions, pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Would you like to express yourself creatively? No, maybe. Just kind of unsure. Enlighten or teach or counsel? Yeah, I like that. Okay. Influence or persuade? No, I don't want to do any sales, so they'll maybe say no to that. Work with facts and numbers. Again, unsure. Okay, so those are the 6 questions. And from those 6 questions, we've sort of created these traits that sort of suggest what a person is. From here, a person could retake the assessment. They can begin to save these results, and you'll see in a minute they have to create an account in order to do that, or they could download the results, right? So from here, what it's suggested is computer science is a kind of a strong suit. So right here, you see it's 100% is more health science. Did I say computer science? Health science. And then it breaks it down which ones are less sort of connected to what a student might want to do. You'll see the percentages go down, right? But even within here, for example, you'll see, I'm going to click on information technology, and you'll see there's a 75% match for programming and software development. So it still gives them an idea if they want to just look at those. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and look at the sort of 100% and then and see kind of what we find here. So from here, it kind of shows what the path is in this sort of meta category, right? These are sort of the different things that are mapped into health sciences, for example. And then here, there's 100%, 99%, and it breaks it down. Diagnosis and treatment. Maybe a student would say, hey, no, that looks interesting. Now here, it guides them, and it's starting to give them even more and more information. Now what we do is we make it broad. This is sort of the default to say, okay, these are the broad categories, and a student might say, well, wait a minute, I don't want a doctorate or a master's, maybe they'll say, I just want to look at associates, okay? And so now we're just looking at associates and below, okay? So these are just the opportunities within kind of that discipline that they're looking at here. And so as I indicated before, it gives you an idea of what the occupation is, right? This is the median annual salary, okay? Giving them an idea of what's going on there. And then here is the top level of education, kind of helping a student be able to understand, well, what kind of level of education will I need? And what it does is it gives the top 3, okay? So here, let's say they like nursing and they want to look at that a little bit more closely. They'll click on nursing, okay? And now what it's doing is it's giving even more information about the occupations. We're still looking at occupations or careers, if you will, okay? And within this career, there are a bunch of programs available, right? And a student could click on those. These are all of the colleges in California, and I'll show this to you here in a moment, kind of the mapping functionality. But they can get even more information. This is sort of the overview section. They can be prompted to look at the about. So now we're looking at the about. This is kind of what this occupation is, okay? These are the tasks that it does. And this is a little bit more detail on the national education attainment level, okay? All of the data, with the exception of this look here, is regional data. Okay, this particular one is national because it's very, very hard to regionalize. But the point is we're trying to get a student to understand kind of where they might need to go, what would be helpful for them to understand. Skills that employers are asking for. Back to my regional analysis. All these skills are specifically for the region we've chosen. Okay. At this moment, it's all of California, and I'll show you in a minute how we can narrow that. Now, wages. This is wage information. Wage information as it relates to how much they can expect to make. New workers generally start around this wage, but they can, the highly experienced workers, make $39,500. So, just to again, heavy-duty labor or market information, but it very much is understandable and attainable on what it's saying. I'm going to show you kind of, if we wanted to change, for example, these are the different doing what matter regions, which you might be familiar with, okay? So this is how we've broken out the regional analysis. I'm gonna look at Inland Empire, for example. And in the Inland Empire, it's a different wage scale, right? And so it'll tell you in the Inland Empire, this is how much you can and maybe expect to make. Okay. Within MyPath, if your student is coming into Career Coach from MyPath, it defaults to your region, wherever your college is, incidentally. Okay. And finally, on this particular page, I'm going to show you the employment tab here. So employment, it talks about what are kind of the monthly job postings for the last couple of years, gives them an idea of what is the kind of the intensity of people are looking for this particular occupation. These are the companies that are posting. Again, regional, whatever region we're looking at, it'll show that regional data and employment projections as well. Okay. So the student can kind of look at this, and again, hopefully you would agree they'd be able to understand exactly what this is kind of telling them, what it's saying to them, right? So from here, okay, as we looked at through all of California, and this is alphanumeric categorized right now. But if we were to just to look at a particular region, say let's do the North Bay, okay? So in the North Bay, these are the available programs that you could take for this particular occupation, okay? So if a student was interested in one of these, they would click on it, and then you see it's giving that regional information right away as well. So I'm gonna look at Santa Rosa, for example. Now a student can save this this program. They can also save careers, okay, which would go into their profiles, right? Or they could click here and go to Santa Rosa's homepage and get more information on it. The other thing that they're able to do as they look at in this page, for example, is they can look at other related careers, as it relates to nursing. They could look at other related careers, as it relates to that. So that's kind of the functionality that Career Coach has. So what we've done is we've tried to make it to where a student could really find where they're wanting to go. We found that if you can get a student kind of looking down the road at the end of the tunnel, it makes them much more able to, finish the process. And so what we're glad to do, and we're really happy to have this be part of the MyPath tools, to be able to help them be able to connect to a program in whatever region is that they're looking at trying to go to school. So that's Career Coach, sort of the dime presentation. I hope that was helpful, and look forward to any questions you might have.
Great, thank you very much, Ralph. Let's see here. Give me just a moment to share my screen again. So we have had some questions and some discussion within the chat window already. Let's see. I do want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity, give you a couple minutes to gather thoughts and enter any questions that you may have. In the meantime, Mike, can I call on you to give a summary of the discussion that did happen in the chat already?
Yeah, so there was one question about whether content or whether MyPath can be customized to point students to other products that the college is already using, and so the answer to that, of course, is yes, we can support that. And I also want to take that time to point out that as you configure this product for your college, it is not a requirement for us to handle those customizations, and further, it's not even required for your IT department to handle those things either. This product was designed explicitly for management by non-technical personnel. And we can cover a lot more about that, on the individualized calls with each of your colleges. There was another question from Carolyn about whether we were aware that some high school seniors receive rewards for completing the application, even though they're already accepted to other universities and are not really actively planning on attending the community colleges. And in response to that, I personally was not aware of that. It's possible that people on the apply team are. But again, we would hope that there's a way for us to, at some point, filter out those types of applications, because those are not things that I would consider to be true and meaningful data in terms of trying to figure out how many real applications turn into enrollments. Then there was some commentary from Janet. I'm just going to go ahead and read off this comment. That I'm assuming the students are coming. I think assuming the students are coming based just on the numbers is not enough. True, completing the application to actual registering is something we must clarify and support students with, but for many students, the application is simple enough. The registration is full of jargon and things they simply don't understand. And so to that, I would just say that it is an excellent point, and we hope that by setting up an onboarding process within MyPath such that you are identifying things that you think could be confusing to students and taking that opportunity to give them the answers they need, that maybe it's possible for us to help to solve for some of those issues. But again, if there are things that are going on within this application process that you think we could be doing a better job of helping get information to students in response to, especially within MyPath, we would love to hear that kind of thing, because that will help us to build out additional features within MyPath. There is another comment in here from Deb at the Chancellor's office. So how does the school get going on this, and how long is the implementation? Another really excellent question. So in order to get going, you simply have to reach out to us, and Sandoval, are we going to put up some contact info for folks to reach out to, or are we just going to assume that they have their CRM's contacts?
Nope, we have that information here. Let me advance the slide. So if you're ready to sign up, folks, or even if you just want a personal contact to just explore the possibility of using MyPath further, you can contact the Tech Center College Relationship Managers at the email address currently on the screen.
Yeah. And in response to the other half of that question, which is how long is the implementation? So without going into too much detail, it is, relatively speaking, very short. Assuming that your college has the technical hurdles already cleared, which if your college is already doing something like Canvas or something that would have you integrated with the proxy, then generally speaking, those things are already done. And it's simply a matter of putting the content into MyPath that you would like to put there. And that can be done, assuming you have a team already identified to work on it, in as little as a week or two. It is very fast. So again, please reach out to the CRM team. We will get a call together with you guys, and we'll be able to explain all that to you in detail. But yeah, that process can be very short. Let's see, there's some more questions coming in. Is there a wait list to get onto the product? Nope, we're ready to begin working with you now. So please reach out, and we are happy to get things going with you as quickly as your college is able to work with us. Does MyPath allow single sign-on to the college system if we link our content? Absolutely, yes. There is no need for a student to maintain multiple sets of credentials to use something like MyPath versus what you guys have there locally. That's actually part of the implementation process. And then from Janet, is there a way to integrate the information here with all work we are doing with the guided pathways training? The EPI work was my first understanding of pathways. And this tool is absolutely relevant and key to our college becoming a pathway institution. Thank you for all your great work, research and planning. So first of all, thank you guys for helping us develop the tool that will help students do this kind of thing. We are a part of the California community college system. And so, this is, the success here is as much ours as it is yours. But in answer to your question, if there's a way to integrate information here with all the work we were doing with guided pathways training. So if there are things that are in the guided pathways trainings that you want to show to students, it's a simple matter of configuring content the way that you think it should be in MyPath. Otherwise, if there are specific things you'd like to see, then yeah, absolutely, please let me know, and I'll be happy to address those kind of on a one-off basis. Is there an ongoing cost to use this? That's an excellent question. Is there an ongoing cost? It's actually my favorite one to answer, because no, there's absolutely no cost. This is free. This is subsidized by the system, and that includes Career Coach. So we're happy to keep things that way. Is there a pre-application functionality, i.e. prospects, inquiries, et cetera? Another really excellent question. So we focused on the presentation today on what we think is the big problem statement around students that are applying and not enrolling. But you can also choose to use CCC MyPath as a pre-application pathway tool. So you can actually have students go to your website, click on Apply to College, and then give them a set of tasks that come before the application. If, for example, you think that is that is relevant to show things like financial aid information or program information or to do career exploration prior to the application. You can totally set it up, and you can actually use it on both ends of the process as well. You can have them go through MyPath, complete some tasks before the application, go through the application, submit it, and then end up back in MyPath afterwards to complete that dynamic onboarding process that is related to the information they've given to us in the application. That is totally possible, and we are happy to talk about that during the individualized college calls as well. But that's a really excellent thing to bring up because it is important to know that MyPath is flexible in that way.
Okay, folks, any more questions that there are can be added to the, there we go. Mike, we've got another question, couple questions from Christine.
Yeah, absolutely. So does this include any communication or advising tools that can be used with students, for example, where a counselor can send a student message to an education planning components? So yes, there is a fully featured communications engine that comes with it. They can send emails, text messages, all those kinds of things. And one of the things we didn't really get into because it was a little more nuanced than I thought people might want to talk about is that you can actually tie the communications engine to the rules engine. And what I mean by that is if you see certain behaviors from students, like let's say that a student indicated an interest in collegiate athletics, I don't know, I'm just pulling that out of the hat. You can actually cause individualized communications to be sent to students based on specific things that we see about them. You can actually also, if you would like to, set up those messages to go to more than one place, and you can send them to your counselors as well if you want to notify staff internally about students that are incoming that have specific needs and interests. Hopefully that helps. In terms of whether there's an education planning component, when MyPath was previously tied to the Education Planning Initiative, which is sort of the origination for a lot of this product development and a lot of our original funding, we were, as a part of that initiative, also supporting Starfish, which is an ed planner that sort of the system sort of endorsed. We do still support that, of course. And so if you are using Starfish or some other ed planner that your college has already adopted, we would be happy to work with you guys to figure out how we can prompt students, for example, to go and create their ed plans as a part of the onboarding process. Again, please bring that up when we talk about these individualized college calls, and we'll figure out how we can get to where you need to go. How long does it take to implement MyPath, and in which service area of the college or district does the maintenance/updates? Okay, great question. So again, implementation of MyPath, presuming that you've already cleared the technical hurdles, which the majority of colleges already have, is a matter of identifying who is going to own that locally within the college. So we've seen at some colleges that it's the A&R department. We've seen at some colleges that it's actually a team of counselors. We've seen at some colleges that it's a combination of those things with the IT department. Really, it's kind of up to your college to identify who is going to own it. And once that team is in place, it can go very fast, assuming that everybody agrees with the content that should be presented. It's a matter of just putting it in MyPath, and that can just be as fast as a week or two. It's really very simple. It's kind of individually up to each college to make that happen on the pace that they think is appropriate. But again, it can be very fast. Can the college reach out to prospective students, or does only the chancellor's office have that ability? That's an interesting question, and one that is probably more relevant to the folks who handle the apply process. And I say that specifically because they get the students' contact information before we do generally. And I would typically like to leave that up to the chancellor's office to answer that question, because I think that comes down to a matter of who is legally allowed to communicate with a student and at what point. So not to pass the buck or anything, but that's not something that I'm an expert in myself. Does this product integrate with colleague student planning? So we can create workflow integrations with any products that you guys want. If there are processes that you want your students to go through that you want to present to them in the onboarding process, we can absolutely help you set those things up, and we can help you prompt your students to go and take advantage of these tools that you have at the time that it's appropriate. So again, when we start talking about implementation, please let us know, and we'll help you to get those prompts and those onboarding steps set up in the way that you want to see them. All right, I think we're caught up, Sandoval.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. We'll keep an eye on the chat box here for a couple more minutes. I did get a question privately that I want to highlight. The question was about who should be the contact person at the college to reach out to the Technology Center and initiate this process, IT, instruction, student affairs. Mike, I think, my answer to that is that in general, we're looking for the approval of the Chief Student Services Officer or equivalent at the college or district. That would be the go-ahead for the institution. I think at that point, our enabling services team on the tech center side would then be responsible for ongoing implementation, including reaching out to various departments. This plays in, Mike, to designated team locally at the college. But I just want to get your take on that as well, Mike. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, we essentially go through just an approval step where we get permission essentially from the right people within the college to go ahead and implement. And then after that, the CRM team will essentially work with you guys to identify who the local team is that will maintain the product or help decide what the initial implementation is going to look like. And then it basically proceeds at the college's pace from there. It will get implemented as fast as you guys can make that happen. And again, it was our goal to make sure that we weren't piling additional projects on already overburdened IT staff across the state. And so it's a matter of really just configuring content. And so truly it is able to be done as quickly as the college can decide what they want to see.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. I want to thank everybody for their attendance. I do have the chat box open still in case there are any late questions coming in. For this audience, I definitely want to emphasize the fact that MyPath was developed, by the colleges and for the colleges. We were funded by the Chancellor's Office to deploy these types of statewide, system-wide technology projects. And the MyPath Genesis involved the Education Planning Initiative, which was multi-year and involved participation by educational practitioners such as yourself statewide over many years of development. And for that reason, we believe that it's extremely well suited for the California Community College environment specifically. Okay, not seeing any more questions in the chat box. I just want to bring attention to the slide, which I hope everyone can see. If you're interested in signing up for this or even in just having a personal touch point for more information, please contact the Tech Center College Relationship Managers at crms@ccctechcenter.org. There is some more information, including an overview of MyPath, as well as a recording of past webinars. That's the second URL there, resource-kit/webinars. There is an excerpt within that webinar webpage that I think is very well done and would be of high interest to the colleges. It's specific to the Sierra College experience with MyPath so far. And rather than an entire webinar, it's about 10 minutes of excerpt. So that in particular may be of interest to you. We are going to reconvene another MyPath webinar. The next one will be scheduled for February 13th, noon to 1. And I would encourage you to watch inbox for invites for that and to encourage folks to attend any colleagues that you feel may be interested in that. With that and seeing no more questions in the chat room. Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Will future webinars be on the same content? I'm going to have to defer to Mike on that. I have been part of the discussion regarding future webinar content. I can't immediately recall our final decision. Mike, are we going to be continuing with just general overviews, or are we going to be branching into more depth this year?
So typically we do general overviews because oftentimes we get people who've not been to the webinar in the past coming to these. And so it's a good opportunity to kind of introduce them to the product and what it does. But when we can, we typically like to bring college partners, colleges who've already implemented MyPath, and have them kind of speak to you guys instead of me. Because I assume that you would much rather hear from other colleges about what the product means to them, why they're excited about using it or not, and what they're planning on doing with it, and how they can sort of improve their own processes by utilizing it. So we've had some pretty successful instances of that type of webinar in the past that are actually on our website, the cccedplan.org website. So you can see actually in the record webinars there's a really good one that we got from Sierra a few weeks ago that I would encourage folks to watch. And we hope to be doing more of those as well. But you know, when we know that that's going to be the case, we'll typically try to message that in the emails so you can be aware of what's coming.
So ultimately, Jennifer, the answer is the content will be very similar for the next monthly webinar as announced. The addition that may occur is if we have a college currently using MyPath that would join the webinar. For more in-depth information, including in-depth demos on any part of MyPath or exploring depth within the product, again, please contact your college relationship managers. They will definitely get it on the calendar and make sure to get you any information that you need. Okay, again, thanks everyone. Happy New Year. We appreciate your time and attention today. And you will receive a follow-up as this webinar recording will be posted to the cccedplan.org website. Thank you.